You've arrived at CozySideAudio, where dreams begin with a story. Whether you're studying, journaling, or just chilling, this one's for you. If you vibe with this kind of content, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe for more.
CozySideAudio presents The Forgetting Rain, Chapter 1, City of Rusted Skies. The rain had no rhythm anymore. It didn't patter the way water used to in old films, didn't sing against rooftops or windows. It hissed, a corrosive whisper eating through everything it touched. Steel grew sickly under it, concrete blistered, glass clouded over with chemical frost. The city wasn't dying under the rain, it was being slowly rewritten. From Cale Ryan's office window, the skyline looked like the teeth of some ancient creature, rusted and jagged, leaning against a sky the color of old oil. He had stopped pretending to clean the glass. Acid rain ate through whatever he sprayed on it, just as it ate through coats, shoes, umbrellas, and if you were careless enough to walk uncovered, the soft tissue of your own body. Not that people carried umbrellas to protect themselves anymore. Cale leaned back in his chair, a cigarette smoldering between his fingers. The smoke had a cleaner taste than the air outside, which said more about the air than it did about the tobacco. His office smelled faintly of mildew and ozone, of paperwork left out too long in damp air. The flickering neon from the noodle joint across the street spilled through the blinds, painting stripes across his desk, like an old prison uniform. A knock, sharp, hesitant. "Doors open," Cale said, voice carrying that gravel of disuse. The door creaked, and the figure that stepped in wasn't a client. It was a boy, maybe 10, clothes patched with adhesive tape and synth fabric scraps, hair matted down by the perpetual drizzle outside. In his hands, he carried something black, slick, humming faintly with an unnatural pulse. An umbrella. Cale sat forward. "Kid, you know what that is?" The boy nodded once, his eyes too old for his face. He placed it carefully on the desk, like setting down a weapon. "It wouldn't shut off," the boy whispered. His voice cracked, as if the words themselves hurt. "I don't want it." Before Cale could ask, the boy turned and left, shoes squeaking down the stairwell. The rain swallowed him before Cale even reached the window. Cale looked at the umbrella. It wasn't like the cheap plastic shells sold at corner stores. This one had weight, a kind of density, like it was more real than the objects around it. Its canopy shimmered faintly, wet with chemical rain, but somehow untouched by it. Along the shaft were thin, shifting glyphs, code etched into metal. And that pulse, like a heartbeat. Cale picked it up. The instant his fingers brushed the grip, he felt it. The disorienting slide of images across the surface of his mind. A girl's face, young, maybe 20 at most, pale skin, lit by neon signage, lips curled in a smile that felt unearned in this city. Her eyes, grey, not dull but bright, like steel catching the faintest light. Then, laughter. A sound so raw, so unfiltered, it hurt to hear it. Cale dropped the umbrella. The sound cut off, leaving only the hiss of rain and the faint buzzing of the neon sign outside. His heart rattled against his ribs. He had seen plenty of umbrellas before. Memory umbrellas, they called them, a syndicate invention. People bought them to forget. Debts, grief, crimes. They opened them in the rain and let the acid wash their memories away, as if the city itself was drinking up their sins. But umbrellas didn't give memories back, and they didn't show you people who didn't exist. Cale lit another cigarette with trembling fingers. The office suddenly felt too small, the shadows too crowded. He should have taken it straight to the syndicate. get it off his desk before it burned a hole through his brain. But something about that face, he needed another look. Cale reached for the umbrella again. This time he held on, as the pulse swam into his nervous system. The girl appeared more clearly, not just a flash, an impression. She was standing in an alley Cale didn't recognize, under signage that had long since rusted away. She spoke, though the words came to him like echoes underwater. "If you remember me, then I wasn't erased." The image cracked like glass dropped on concrete. Cale staggered back, chair scraping loud against the floorboards. Sweat slicked his palms. He had heard about umbrellas malfunctioning, even about them storing fragments when the erase cycle didn't fully purge. But this was something else. A full imprint, a personality, a life contained in one device. And the girl's name. He could feel it pressing at the edge of his mind, like a word he had always known but never spoken. Nyra. The name hurt, as if it had been ripped out of something he once had, or once was. The bar downstairs was half empty. Cale sat at the counter, umbrella on the stool beside him, a glass of whiskey sweating in his hand. The bartender, an old woman with skin like dry leather, eyed the object and frowned. "Not a good thing to be carrying around," she said. "Neither's a liver soaked in ethanol," Cale muttered. He tossed the whiskey back and hissed at the burn. The woman chuckled, rasping. "At least I forget things the honest way." Cale didn't answer. He stared at the umbrella as though it might blink. The city outside thrummed with neon, advertising every vice a person could buy to forget they were still alive. The rain kept hissing, endless, a metronome ticking out the death of steel and memory alike. He thought of the boy, of how quickly he'd fled after leaving the umbrella behind. Whoever had carried this before knew it was dangerous, maybe cursed, and yet Cale couldn't look away. The memories weren't his, but the ache they left behind was. Later, in the office, he tried again. The umbrella responded faster this time, its pulse matching the rhythm of his heart. Images unspooled in his head like reels of half-burned film. Nyra, laughing in the glow of a ramen stand. Nyra crying, rain streaking her face like glass melting. Nyra running down corridors Cale didn't recognize. And then, an abrupt cut to black, a memory cut clean away. Cale pressed his hands to his temples. The bleed-over was worse than he expected. If he kept this thing too long, he'd lose track of which memories were his. He'd seen it happen to junkies who collected umbrellas like trophies, drowning in the lives of others until their own identities eroded. But there was something about her voice. "If you remember me, then I wasn't erased." Cale leaned back, eyes burning. He'd taken plenty of cases with dead ends, but this wasn't about money or justice or even survival. It was something else, something harder to name. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was loneliness. Or maybe he had already forgotten why he cared. The umbrella pulsed softly in the corner of the room, like a second heartbeat. And that was how Cale Rhines found himself chasing a ghost named Nyra, in a city where memories were worth more than lives, and the rain never lets you forget what it had already taken away. Chapter 2. Umbrella Syndicate. The next morning, the city was still weeping. Rain didn't stop here, not ever. It only changed in texture, sometimes thicker, almost gelatinous, sometimes thin, and misty like toxic breath. Cale walked with his collar turned up, cigarette pressed between his lips, the umbrella slung under his arm like contraband. People on the street didn't look at him, didn't look at each other. They carried their own umbrellas, most of them cheap copies. Some pulsed faintly, loaded with memories too heavy to carry. Others hung limp, drained empty, husks of forgotten lives. No one spoke. Only the hiss of rain, the hum of neon signs, and the distant grind of the city eating itself. Cale knew better than to bring the umbrella straight to the syndicate, but he also knew better than to ignore them. In this city, the syndicate wasn't just another gang. They were the nervous system. Drugs, tech, memory umbrellas. If it altered the way people lived or died, the syndicate owned it. Their headquarters hid in plain sight. A crumbling office tower, neon windows buzzing, its signage deliberately faded until it was illegible. The kind of place the city pretended not to see. Inside, the air was thick with mold and incense. The reception area had been stripped of anything welcoming. Just a metal detector archway, 2 guards in matte black raincoats, and a woman behind glass tapping on a screen. "Name," she said without looking up. Cale blew smoke into the stale air. "Rhines, Cale Rhines." That got her attention. Her eyes flicked up, narrowed. "Detective." He gave her the ghost of a smile. "Private investigator. Detective's too generous." A pause. Then, "You're expected." That was the part that made his skin crawl. The syndicate boss wasn't the kind of man who needed introduction. People called him Drexler, though Cale doubted that was his real name. He sat behind a desk of corroded steel, polished until it shone like water, his figure framed by the window behind him. Rain sheeted down the glass, turning his silhouette into something shifting, indistinct. Drexler was thin, almost fragile-looking, his skin stretched too tightly over his skull, hair slicked back as if pinned there. His voice, when it came, was surprisingly soft. "You've been carrying something that isn't yours, Cale." Cale dropped into the chair across from him. Word travels fast. In this city, memory travels faster than truth. Drexler folded his hands. "Where did you find it?" Cale exhaled smoke toward the window. "It found me." Kid dropped it off, looked scared enough to melt. Drexler's lips twitched, not quite a smile. Children have a better sense of danger than most adults. They haven't learned to dress it up as opportunity. "I didn't come here for philosophy." Cale leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I came to ask why this umbrella doesn't behave like the others." Drexler's eyes flicked, sharp and reptilian. "And what makes you think it doesn't?" Cale didn't blink. "Because it talks back." For the first time, silence filled the room. Not the comfortable silence of 2 men weighing each other, but the brittle silence of something cracking under weight. Drexler's voice was quieter when it came again. "You opened it." "Curiosity," Cale said. "Bad habit?" "Curiosity," Drexler echoed. His fingers drummed against the desk. "That habit has killed more men than bullets." Cale let the silence hang this time. He'd learned with men like Drexler that speaking too much was a death sentence. At last, Drexler sighed. "You've seen her then? The girl?" Cale said nothing. The cigarette burned down between his fingers. "She doesn't exist, Cale. Never did." Drexler leaned back, his chair creaking. Some umbrellas glitch, leave behind echoes of their last host. Faces, fragments, junk data. It's an error, nothing more. "Funny thing about errors," Cale said. "Sometimes they're the most honest thing in a system." Drexler's gaze hardened. "Let me make this clear. That umbrella isn't yours. Bring it to me, and this conversation never happened. Keep it, and you won't just lose your memories, you'll lose the part of you that remembers how to live." Cale stubbed his cigarette out on the arm of the chair, leaving a dark scorch mark. If she's nothing, then why are you so afraid of her? Drexler's expression didn't change, but the silence after that question said more than any threat could. Outside, Cale lit another smoke and walked into the rain. His reflection blurred in puddles, smeared by ripples of acid. He tried to convince himself that Drexler was right, that Nyra was nothing more than corrupted data, a glitch caught in the umbrella's circuitry. Yeah, but glitches didn't look at you like that. They didn't whisper as if they'd been waiting for you to listen. If you remember me, then I wasn't erased. The words looped in his head, more insistent now, as though the umbrella had carved them into his nervous system. Later that night, Cale found himself in a place he told himself he wouldn't go, the Memory Market. It wasn't an official name. No one put up signs or carved it into maps. It existed in alleys and abandoned subway stations, in drowned parking garages. People came here to buy and sell umbrellas, not the cheap knockoffs, but the real ones. Umbrellas heavy with lives. The market smelled like rust, mold, and desperation. Stalls lined with umbrellas opened and closed like steel flowers, each humming with its own private storm. Vendors barked prices, customers argued, addicts twitched with hunger for someone else's memories. Cale walked through the chaos, the syndicate's warning still buzzing in his skull. Looking for something particular? A voice rasped. He turned. A man with half his face reconstructed in chrome grinned at him, teeth yellow against the metal. His stall was littered with umbrellas, some cracked, some glowing faintly, some trembling as if alive. Got one that belonged to a war vet, the man said, tapping a canopy that pulsed red. Every bullet, every scream, every kill. People pay good money for nightmares, believe it or not. Cale shook his head. Ah, maybe love stories? The man held up a silver umbrella with delicate engravings. First kisses, wedding vows, births, priceless if you've forgotten what that feels like. Cale's hand tightened on the umbrella under his arm. The vendor's smile faltered. His eyes flicked to it, recognition sparking. That one. Where'd you get it? Cale's jaw clenched. Not for sale. The vendor leaned closer, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. Then you're in deeper shit than you think, friend. That one doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the protocol. Cale frowned. The what? The man's grin returned, wide and broken. Umbra protocol? You don't want to know. But Cale already did. Back in his office, the umbrella waited. He hadn't opened it since the syndicate meeting, but it didn't matter. It pulsed in the dark, like a beacon, like a heartbeat. Cale poured himself another drink and stared at it until the glass was empty. He knew then he wasn't going to hand it over. Some memories weren't meant to be forgotten. Chapter 3. Ghost Girl. The umbrella waited for him when he came home, sitting in the corner of his office like a patient predator. Cale dropped his coat on the back of a chair and poured himself a drink. His hands shook just enough that whiskey sloshed down the side of the glass. He didn't bother wiping it. He just sat there in the flicker of neon, staring at the object that had already twisted his life into knots. He told himself he wouldn't open it again. Not tonight. Not after Drexler's warning. Not after the look in that market vendor's eyes when he said Umbra Protocol. But the umbrella pulsed anyway. It wanted to be touched. The rain outside hissed against the windows, steady as static. Cale leaned forward, elbows on his knees, glass sweating in his hands. He thought of the boy who had dropped it off, thought of how terrified he looked. And then he thought of her. Nyra. He hadn't decided to pick it up. By the time he realized what he was doing, the grip was already warm against his palm, the pulse sinking into his veins. The room dissolved. She was standing under a neon sign that sputtered in broken pink letters. Her hair clung, wet, against her cheeks. Her coat soaked through, but her eyes, those bright steel-grey eyes, were alive. She was laughing. "Come on, Cale," she said, and his stomach lurched at the sound of his name. "We'll miss it." He tried to speak, but no words came out. His throat worked, but nothing formed. She grabbed his hand. He felt it. Warm, real, too real. The street spun as she pulled him, weaving between strangers, past stalls steaming with synthetic noodles, past rain-slicked alleys where neon light pooled like blood. For a moment, Cale forgot the umbrella. He forgot the office, the syndicate, the rain. All that existed was her hand in his and the certainty that they were running towards something important. Then, the world cracked apart. Static screamed in his ears. Nyra turned, her mouth opening as if to say something urgent, but her face blurred, pixelated, then shattered into fragments of light. Cale gasped and dropped the umbrella. "Shay!" The office came rushing back, neon stripes on the walls, whiskey glass on the desk, the taste of acid air burning his throat. But his hand still felt warm, as if hers had just been there. He didn't sleep. He sat in the chair until dawn, drinking until the bottle was gone, replaying the memory again and again in his head. She had called him by name. Not an echo, not a glitch, not just data. She knew him. Kund. By noon, Cale was standing in front of Silvertongue's door. The hacker lived in the belly of the city, deep in the old subway tunnels where rain seeped through cracks in the ceiling and pooled in stagnant lakes on the floor. To get there, Cale waded through graffiti-tagged corridors, past junkies passed out against support beams, past children digging through trash for parts to sell. Silvertongue wasn't his real name, of course. Nobody knew that. What they did know was that he could gut an umbrella's code, strip it, read it, even rewrite it if you paid enough. Cale knocked twice, then once. The door opened with a hiss of hydraulics. The hacker's den looked like the inside of a nervous system, cables strung like veins, monitors flickering with data streams, old circuit boards piled like bones. Silvertongue himself sat hunched over a workstation, his jawline covered in chrome implants that clicked when he chewed on a stim gum. "Well, well," Silvertongue said without turning. His voice was oily, smooth. "If it isn't the detective who doesn't detect, what brings you crawling into my sewer?" Cale held up the umbrella. "I need you to look at this." Silvertongue finally turned. His eyes flicked to the object, and for once, his grin faltered. "Shit," he said softly. "Where the hell did you get that?" "Does it matter?" Cale asked. "It matters if you want to live." Silvertongue stood, pacing a tight circle. "That's not just some umbrella, Cale. That's a fucking archive." "Explain." Silvertongue tapped a console, pulling up streams of code on the monitors. Most umbrellas just redirect memory pathways. Think of it like a siphon. You open it, and your brain drains into it. But this, he gestured at the umbrella like it was toxic, this doesn't just store memories. It copies them, makes constructs, whole people, like backups of souls. Cale's jaw tightened. So she's not just a glitch. Silvertongue squinted at him. "You've already seen her, haven't you? The girl." Kale didn't answer. The hacker chuckled bitterly. Figures, they always bleed through. Umbra Protocol wasn't supposed to let anyone keep those memories. They were meant to be erased, clean, and simple. But someone fucked up. Or maybe someone wanted this one to survive. Umbra Protocol, Kale repeated. What is it? Silvertongue leaned closer, his face harsh in the glow of the monitors. Government project. Early days of the umbrellas. They wanted a way to erase people completely. Not just memory, not just history. Existence. Make someone vanish so thoroughly it's like they were never born. Kale felt the weight of the words sink into him like stones in water. And Nyra, he asked quietly. Silvertongue flinched at the name. So she told you. Who was she? Silvertongue shook his head. Doesn't matter who she was. What matters is she isn't supposed to be. If the syndicate knows you've got her, they won't just kill you. They'll unwrite you. They'll turn you into one of your own cold cases. Kale stared at the umbrella in his hands. Its pulse was stronger now, almost defiant, as if it had heard every word. Then I guess I'd better find her first, Kale said. Silvertongue laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Find a ghost? You're already halfway one yourself. That night, Kale opened the umbrella again. The pulse surged through him instantly, stronger than before. The office fell away, swallowed by static. And then, her voice, clear, sharp, undeniable. Kale. She stood in front of him, her coat still damp, her eyes searching his. Not a glitch, not fragments, a person. You're still here, she said softly, as if testing the shape of the fact. Kale swallowed. Who are you? Her expression faltered, then hardened. Someone they tried to erase. Someone who remembers you, even if you don't remember me. The room around them began to fracture, reality bleeding at the edges. Kale reached for her, desperate. Tell me why, he said. Tell me what they did to you. Nyra's face tilted toward his, her lips parting as if she might finally say it, and then she was gone. The umbrella snapped shut in his hands, the pulse dying like a severed artery. Kale sat alone, in the neon-lit silence, his breath ragged. But the last thing she said still echoed, carved into his bones. Someone who remembers you, even if you don't remember me. Chapter 4. Static in the Mind. The city looked different after she spoke. It wasn't brighter. Nothing could make the skyline less diseased, but the angles seemed sharper, the colors harsher. Kale walked the streets as if they might peel away to reveal another world underneath. Her words clung to him, heavier than the rain. Someone who remembers you, even if you don't remember me. Kale lit a cigarette, the flame trembling in the wind. The smoke coiled into the hiss of acid rainfall, devoured before it rose an inch. He wondered how many of his own memories had been stolen, siphoned off into umbrellas, and left to rot. He wondered how much of Kale Rines was actually Kale Rines. He didn't like the answer that took shape in his mind. The ambush came 3 blocks from his office. 2 figures in matte raincoats stepped out of an alley, their faces masked in reflective visors, syndicate cleaners. Kale had seen the type before. They moved like predators, efficient, silent, the kind of men you only noticed when it was already too late. One raised a hand. You have something that belongs to us. Kale exhaled smoke. Funny, I don't recall the syndicate selling me a goddamn thing. The other drew a weapon, not a gun. Guns were messy, traceable. This was sleeker, a compact device shaped like an injector. Umbrella tech. They meant to wipe him clean. leave him drooling in the street, his mind stripped bare. Cale's pulse quickened. His hand brushed the umbrella at his side. "You don't want to do this," he said. But the first man was already moving. Cale swung the umbrella open. For an instant, the world bled. Rain hissed against the canopy and turned to static. The assassins froze mid-step, their visors flickering with light as the umbrella's pulse spilled out, tendrils of memory flooding the air. Cale staggered as the feedback hit him. Images slammed into his skull. Gunfire, screams, a woman's hand slipping from his, a child's laugh dissolving into silence. Not his, theirs. The assassin's forgotten lives playing across his vision like broken reels. The men screamed. One dropped to his knees, clawing at his visor as if to tear his own face off. The other stumbled backward, smashing into the alley wall, choking on sobs that didn't sound human. Cale slammed the umbrella shut. The pulse snapped off. Silence fell, broken only by the hiss of rain. The two syndicate cleaners twitched on the ground, their minds drowning in the ghosts of themselves. Cale's stomach churned. He hadn't meant to use it like that. He wasn't even sure what he'd done. But the umbrella had reacted, not him. He stepped past them, his cigarette half burned between his lips, and didn't look back. By the time he reached his office, his head was splitting open. He poured whiskey over the pain, but it didn't help. The umbrella pulsed in the corner, faint and steady, as if mocking him. "Fuck you," Cale muttered. "You're going to get me killed." And yet, when he closed his eyes, it wasn't Drexler's threat or the cleaner's screams he saw. It was Nyra's face, her mouth moving in silence, her eyes searching his. He wanted answers, but all he had were ghosts. When the knock came, Cale nearly reached for his gun. It wasn't syndicate muscle this time. It was a woman, tall, with a scar running down her jawline like a crack in glass. She wore no coat despite the rain soaking her clothes, and her eyes were a cold, surgical blue. "Detective Rhines?" she asked. Cale leaned against the doorframe. "Depends who's asking." "Someone who knows you've been carrying something dangerous. May I come in?" Cale hesitated, then stepped aside. She entered without waiting, scanning the office as though cataloguing every shadow. Her movements were precise, military. "Name's Celine," she said. "I work off-grid. Call me a retrieval specialist." Cale lit another cigarette. Fancy word for thief. "Better than corpse." She sat in his chair, uninvited. "The syndicate sent cleaners after you. That means they know you've been exposed. You won't last long on your own." Cale exhaled smoke toward the ceiling. "What do you want?" "The umbrella," she said simply. Cale laughed without humor. "Get in line." Her eyes narrowed. "You don't understand what you're carrying. That thing isn't just dangerous, it's corrosive. It eats people alive. You think you're investigating a mystery, but you're already bleeding into it. Give it to me before it rewrites you completely." Cale studied her face. The scar, the steady calm in her eyes. She wasn't lying, but she wasn't telling the whole truth either. "You've seen her," he said. Celine's jaw tightened. "Doesn't matter." "It does, because she knows me." Celine stood, her movements sharp. "Forget her, Rhines. She's not real. She's an artifact, a fragment of erased code. Chase her, and you'll lose whatever's left of yourself." Cale met her gaze. "Maybe I already have." Something flickered in her eyes. Anger, maybe pity. She turned to leave. When the door shut behind her, the room felt smaller than ever. Cale poured another drink. He didn't bother with the glass this time. The rain outside hissed, endless, as if the sky itself were whispering secrets he wasn't meant to hear. He picked up the umbrella again. This time, Nyra's voice was waiting for him the moment it opened. "Cale." Her tone was sharper, urgent. "They're coming. Don't trust anyone." He swallowed. "Who? The syndicate? Celine? Who the hell are you talking about?" Her image flickered, her face blurring at the edges. "They erased me because I knew the truth. They'll erase you too." The office around him wavered, as if reality itself were corroding. Cale's grip tightened. "Then tell me what it is," he said. "Tell me the truth." Nyra's mouth opened, and the umbrella snapped shut. Cale was left staring at his reflection in the dark window, the rain carving lines across the glass like scars. His face looked unfamiliar. For a moment, he wasn't sure if he was remembering himself or someone else. Chapter 5. The rain remembers. Cale dreamed of her again. Not a dream exactly, more like trespassing. He woke with the taste of ramen broth on his tongue, though he hadn't eaten in days. His sheets were damp, as if rain had followed him into bed. And when he looked at the city through the cracks in his blinds, he felt certain he'd seen this view before, except not from his apartment, from somewhere else. Somewhere that wasn't his. He dragged himself upright, sweat sticking his shirt to his skin. The umbrella leaned against the desk in the corner, pulsing faintly, the way it always did when it wanted him to open it. He hated how natural it felt now, how inevitable. Cale poured himself coffee that tasted like chemicals and ash. He told himself he wouldn't touch the umbrella today, not after last night. He told himself that until his hand was already on it. The world cracked like old glass. He was standing in a cramped apartment. No, she was. The walls were paper-thin, leaking neon through hairline cracks. Clothes hung from wires, strung across the room, dripping from the rain. A kettle screamed on a stove that looked ready to explode. Nyra moved through the room like she belonged there, and Cale followed, though he wasn't sure where his body ended and hers began. He touched the counter and felt steam burn his fingertips. He looked in the mirror above the sink and saw her face staring back. Her voice filled the room. Not a whisper this time, but a steady thought, tangled with his own. "This is where they found me." Cale staggered. "Where who found you?" The reflection tilted its head. "The ones who erased me." The memory shifted, hard, violent. A door breaking open. Men in raincoats flooding the room. Nyra screaming as hands grabbed her, dragging her toward the rain-slick hallway, a needle glinting in dim light, then static, tearing everything apart. Cale fell back into himself with a gasp. His coffee mug shattered on the floor. His breath came ragged, his chest burning like he'd swallowed fire. The umbrella lay open on the desk, dripping phantom rain. He barely heard the knock this time. "Rhines," Celine's voice called through the door. "Open up." Cale wiped sweat from his forehead, shoved the umbrella shut, and pulled the door open. Celine looked worse than yesterday. Her hair hung damp, her coat torn at the shoulder, a dark bruise blooming under one eye. She pushed past him without asking. "They're tightening the net," she said, pacing the room. "Drexler's furious you walked away from his cleaners. He's not going to send men next time. He'll send erasers." Cale lit a cigarette with shaking fingers. "Had a rough night yourself?" Celine shot him a glare. "Don't play games. You've been opening it again, haven't you?" Cale exhaled smoke. I don't need you to babysit me. You don't get it. Her voice cracked sharp. Every time you open that thing, it doesn't just show you her. It rewires you. It's bleeding her into you, one fragment at a time. Kale's jaw tightened. Then explain why she knows my name. Celine's mouth worked, but no words came. She looked away, toward the rain-streaked window. You think you're chasing her, she said finally, but she's chasing you just as hard. Kale stepped closer. You've seen her too, haven't you? Selena's silence was answer enough. Later, when Selena finally left, Kale sat in the dark with the umbrella in his lap. The rain outside was softer now, almost a mist, but the hiss of it still filled his ears like static. He opened it again. This time, Nyra was sitting on the floor of that apartment, her knees drawn up, arms wrapped tight around herself, her hair plastered to her cheeks. She looked up at him, not through him, not past him, but at him. You were there, she said. Kale's throat closed. Where? When they took me. Her voice was steady, but her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. You didn't stop them. The words hit like a fist. He staggered, gripping the edge of the desk. That's not true, he rasped. I don't even remember. That's the point. Her tone sharpened, grief twisting into anger. They made sure you wouldn't. The memory fractured around her, collapsing into white noise. Kale slammed the umbrella shut, his chest heaving. His hands shook too hard to hold a cigarette. The image wouldn't leave him. Her eyes, the accusation, the certainty. If she remembered him, if she remembered that, what else had he forgotten? Kale didn't sleep again. He sat at his desk until the neon signs outside died in the daylight, staring at the umbrella, at his reflection in the glass of the window. His face looked strange, distorted by rivulets of acid rain. For a moment, he thought he saw hers instead of his, and he didn't know which scared him more. Chapter 6. The Labyrinth of Forgotten Umbrellas. The factory lay on the edge of the drowned district, where even the syndicate's grip thinned. Kale had never been this far into the rot. Buildings slumped against each other like corpses left unburied, their steel skeletons exposed where the rain had eaten through skin. The air stank of rust and ozone, the kind of chemical tang that made the back of your throat itch. Celine led the way, her coat slick with acid drizzle, her jaw set hard. She hadn't spoken much since last night. Kale didn't press. He knew what silence meant in her line of work. Too many ghosts jostling for space. The factory loomed ahead, its roof collapsed, windows broken like jagged teeth. A faded sign still clung to the wall, letters half erased. Neurovex Technologies. Kale squinted at it through the rain. Didn't they shut down 30 years ago? Celine's voice was flat. Officially. They slipped inside. The smell hit first. Not rot, not exactly. Something sweeter, cloying like spoiled fruit. The air shimmered faintly, as if full of static. Kale realized his skin prickled not from cold, but from proximity. Umbrellas. They were everywhere. Stacks of them lined the walls, toppled across the floor, hanging from rusted rafters like dead bats. Most were broken, handles cracked, canopies shredded, but some still pulsed faintly, dim heartbeats glowing through their ribs. Kale felt his stomach turn. Each one held fragments, whole lives carved out and abandoned here like trash. He tried not to think about the fact that any one of them could burst open, spilling a stranger into his skull. Selene moved carefully, her eyes sharp. Don't touch anything. Half of these are unstable. Even breathing too close can drag you in. Kale snorted. Great, a graveyard full of bombs. Not bombs, Celine said. Echoes. Her tone made his skin crawl. They moved deeper, their footsteps echoing in the hollow dark. Rain dripped through holes in the roof, each drop hissing as it struck metal. At one point, Kale's boot brushed against a canopy. The world jolted. For a split second, he was elsewhere, a kitchen lit by warm light, the smell of soup on the stove, a woman's laughter curling through the air. A child's voice shouted, "Dad!" Then Celine yanked him back, her grip iron on his arm. Focus. Her eyes burned into his. That's how it starts. One memory, then 10, then you're gone. Kale swallowed hard, shoving the echo down. But the word, Dad, still lingered in his ears. They reached the center of the factory. It was worse here. Piles of umbrellas rose like black mountains, some pulsing in sync, others flickering wildly. The static in the air thickened until it hummed inside Kale's teeth. And at the heart of it all, a console. Rusted, half dead, but still alive. Screens cracked but glowing faintly, letters dripping down in endless streams of code. Celine's face tightened. This is it, the labyrinth's root node. They dump unstable umbrellas here to burn themselves out. But the core keeps cataloging. Every fragment that passes through leaves a trace. Kale stepped closer, rainwater dripping from his coat. Meaning? Meaning if Nyra was erased here, there'll be a scar. Kale's pulse kicked up. He touched the console. The screen flared, reacting to his hand. Lines of text surged like veins filling with blood. Celine hissed, "Careful." Too late. The static surged, and the factory dissolved. Kale stood in the rain, but not the same rain. This was clearer, cleaner, a memory's construction of rain. Neon reflected off puddles in impossible colors. Buildings stood whole, unscarred, the city before the corrosion. And she was there. Nyra, standing at the end of the street. Her hair dry, despite the downpour, her eyes locked on him. "You shouldn't have come here," she said. Kale's throat was tight. What is this place? The grave of what they didn't want, remembered. Her voice echoed, strange and doubled, as if carried on two frequencies at once. "You're not supposed to see it." He took a step closer. "Why me? Why do you know me?" Her face twisted. Not anger, not sorrow, but something raw. "Because you let them take me." Kale staggered. The words punched through bone. "That's not—" "You were there," she said, louder now, the rain hissing harder around her. "You watched, and then you chose to forget." The world shattered again. Kale hit the factory floor on his knees, bile rising in his throat. Celine was shouting, her hands gripping his shoulders, but her voice sounded far away. "Rhines, snap out of it. What did you see?" Kale's lips moved, the words clawing out of him. "She thinks I let them take her." Celine's expression hardened. She let go, stepping back like he'd just confessed to murder. "Then maybe you did," she said coldly. Kale wanted to hit her, wanted to deny it, but the look on Nyra's face still burned in his mind, undeniable. And somewhere, deep inside, a voice whispered that maybe Selena was right. They left the factory in silence. The umbrellas behind them pulsed faintly, like thousands of dying hearts. The rain outside swallowed them whole. Kale lit a cigarette with trembling hands. His reflection in a puddle stared back at him, warped by ripples. For a heartbeat, it wasn't his face. It was hers. Chapter 7. The Ghost. Inside, Kale woke to silence. Not the city's silence. No city this diseased could ever sleep, but the silence of absence. His office was dim, blinds shut, the hum of neon faint. Something was missing, though he couldn't name what. Then he saw it. His desk was clean, papers gone, ashtray empty, even the stains on the wood erased. For a second, he thought someone had broken in and scrubbed the place, but when he blinked, it was back. Ash, clutter, cigarette butts scattered like bones. He rubbed his eyes hard. His skull throbbed with static. The umbrella leaned where it always did, waiting. Kale told himself he wouldn't touch it. That lasted 5 minutes. The moment it opened, he wasn't Kale anymore. He was standing in front of a cracked mirror, the glass warped by years of rain. A girl stared back. Nyra, her face pale, her hair stringy and wet. She leaned closer, eyes wide. "You feel it now, don't you?" she whispered. "The drift. My memory's eating yours." Kale tried to answer, but his voice was hers. He raised his hand and saw her fingers, thin, scarred, trembling. Panic slammed through him. He wrenched the umbrella shut and staggered back, choking for air. His own reflection returned in the window's glass, but sweat soaked his shirt, and his hands wouldn't stop shaking. The bleed wasn't fragments anymore. It was possession. The knock came sharp. Kale nearly drew his gun. "Phew, Rhines," Celine called. "Open the damn door before I cut it down." He let her in, still unsteady. She looked worse than before. Rain-scorched coat, eyes rimmed red from no sleep. She clocked his state instantly. "You opened it again," she said flatly. Kale's voice was hoarse. "She's in me." Celine's jaw tightened. She shut the blinds, pacing the room. "Then we don't have time. Drexler's unleashed the erasers. They'll scour whole districts if they have to." Kale dragged a cigarette to his lips. His hands shook too much to light it. Celine struck a match, lit it for him. Their eyes met in the flame's glow. "You said she wasn't real," he muttered. Celine's gaze hardened. "I said she wasn't supposed to be. Big difference." Kale exhaled smoke, bitter in his throat. "So who the hell was she?" Celine hesitated, then leaned close, lowering her voice. "She was a witness. To what, I don't know. But she saw something the Syndicate couldn't let survive. So they erased her. The problem is, you were there too." The room tilted. Kale grabbed the desk. "That's impossible. I'd remember." "That's the point, Rhines." Celine's eyes burned cold. "You don't." They didn't have time to argue. The first eraser arrived like a shadow. Kale felt it before he saw it. The air thickened, the static in his skull spiking to pain. The door didn't open. It dissolved, melting in streaks of acid as a figure stepped through. It wasn't human, not anymore. Tall, thin, skin like glass over wires, its eyes two black wells, reflecting nothing. Its fingers ended in needles, each one dripping light. Celine swore under her breath. "Move." The eraser lunged. Kale fired, bullets tearing through it, but the holes sealed instantly, flesh rippling like liquid. It didn't bleed. It forgot the damage, reality stitching over as though it had never been hit. Fuck," Kale spat. Celine hurled a blade, sleek, humming with faint static. It lodged in the eraser's chest. For the first time, it faltered, body glitching. Fragments of borrowed memories spilling into the air like smoke. Kale glimpsed flashes, children crying, a man begging for his life, a woman singing in the rain. The eraser screamed, soundless, and lunged again. Kale snapped the umbrella open. The world convulsed. The eraser froze, its body flickering, as if caught between channels. Kale felt a surge, not just Nyra's fragments, but hundreds, thousands of discarded lives flooding through. His mind nearly cracked. He screamed, forcing it outward, shoving the storm into the eraser. Gee, the thing convulsed, then shattered into shards of light that dissolved in the rain. Silence. Kale collapsed, gasping. Celine stood over him, blade slick with memory static. Her face was pale. "You're going to burn out," she said quietly. Kale's laugh was bitter. "Broken. Already am." Later, after the office stopped spinning, Selena poured 2 drinks. Cheap whiskey, metallic aftertaste, but it steadied Kale's hands. "Yeah, tell me the truth," he said. "You knew her, Nyra, before." Celine's jaw clenched. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, "She wasn't a ghost, Rhines. She was a girl, and she trusted you." Kale's stomach dropped. "Trusted me to do what?" Celine's eyes locked on his. "To save her, and you didn't." The words sank like lead. Kale wanted to deny them, but Nyra's voice echoed in his head, cold and certain. "You let them take me." The rain outside thickened, hammering the glass like fists. Kale stared at the umbrella. For the first time, he wondered if the case wasn't about finding Nyra at all. Maybe it was about remembering who he'd been. The static hummed in his skull until dawn. And somewhere in the rain, Nyra whispered his name. Chapter 8. Splinters in the Rain. Kale didn't remember leaving the office. For one moment, he was staring at the umbrella's black canopy. The next, he was knee-deep in water, standing in a drowned alley lit by flickering signs. The rain burned against his skin, though he didn't flinch. His hands weren't his own, they were hers. Slim, pale, veins raised. He looked down. A reflection stared back from the water. Nyra's face, not his. "Kale?" Her voice threaded through his skull. "Don't fight me." He tried to scream, to shove her out, but his mouth only whispered her name back. When he came to, Celine had him by the collar. She was half dragging, half carrying him through a tunnel reeking of mold and ozone. "You blacked out again," she snapped, her voice low but shaking. "You're slipping, Rhines. Do you even know how long you were gone?" Kale's throat was raw. "How long?" "4 hours." The words dropped like iron. 4 hours erased, replaced by Nyra. His stomach churned. Celine pushed him against a wall, eyes blazing. "You think you can control it? You can't. Every time you open that thing, she takes more. One day, you won't come back." Kale lit a cigarette with trembling fingers. "Then maybe she deserves it more than I do." Celine's hand lashed out, knocking the smoke from his lips. "Don't say that," her voice cracked. "Don't you dare give up on yourself." Kale met her gaze. "Why do you even care?" She froze. For once, Celine didn't have an answer. The syndicate made their move that night. The trap was elegant. Too elegant for anything but Drexler's personal hand. A false lead, planted in a broadcast. Coordinates whispered through coded frequencies. A promise of answers. Kale should have known better. Celine told him it stank of bait, but he couldn't ignore it. He had to see. The location? The old metro interchange. A cathedral of rust and shadow. Neon signs flickered where vendors once stood. Water pooled across the floor, black as oil. They weren't alone. Figures emerged from the shadows, a dozen at least. Syndicate enforcers in rain-gleaming coats, their masks humming faintly with signal noise. Behind them, a voice boomed through a speaker rigged to the station wall. Drexler. Detective Rhines, you've become a thorn, but thorns can be plucked. Cale gritted his teeth. Come do it yourself, Drexler. The laughter that followed was low and oily. I don't dirty my hands with dead men. The enforcers closed in. The fight was chaos. Celine moved like a blade, cutting through the first wave with mechanical precision. Her knives hummed, splitting memory echoes from flesh, leaving men twitching on the ground. Cale fired until his gun clicked empty, then swung fists, elbows, teeth, anything to keep breathing. But there were too many. They pressed in, crushing, suffocating. A baton cracked across his skull. Stars burst. He stumbled, knees hitting water. The umbrella fell from his grip. Hands seized him, forcing him down. A needle hovered inches from his eye. And then it opened on its own. The world fractured. Rain fell upward. Enforcers screamed, their masks splitting as foreign memories tore into them. Cale felt himself dissolve, every nerve on fire, his mind flooding with Nyra. She surged into him, not whispers, not fragments, but all of her. The needle-bearing enforcer collapsed, clutching his head. Another staggered back, clawing at his face as he drowned in images of a girl's laughter, her screams, her silence. Cale rose. His body moved differently now, too fluid, too graceful. Celine froze, mid-fight, staring. It wasn't Cale standing in the rain. It was Nyra, wearing his skin. Stop, Celine shouted, blade raised. Rines, listen to me. You're not her. But his mouth curved in a smile Cale had never worn. Aren't I? The enforcers recoiled, sensing something wrong. The umbrella pulsed like a heart, its canopy bleeding light. Nyra's voice poured out, clear, steady, undeniable. You tried to erase me, but I remember. And with a gesture, the rain obeyed. It speared downward, acid sharpening into blades. The syndicate soldiers screamed as the storm sliced through coats, flesh, bone. Their masks shorted out, sparks spraying across the black water. Celine shielded her face, her knife trembling in her hand. When the last scream died, only Cale, no Nyra, remained, standing in a halo of hissing rain. Silence. Celine lowered her blade. Her voice was raw. Cale, can you hear me? He blinked. For a heartbeat, Nyra's eyes stared out. Then his own. Then hers again. Cale fell to his knees, gasping, clutching his skull. His voice came fractured, two tones tangled. She's in me. I can't. Celine dropped beside him, gripping his shoulders. Then fight her. Rhines, listen. Don't let her take you. But Nyra's whisper slid between them, soft and certain. Why fight when we're the same? The rain swallowed the words, and Cale realized he no longer knew if she was wrong. Chapter 9. The Two That Were One. Cale dreamed of drowning. Not in water, he'd have preferred that. In voices. They pressed in on him, thousands, overlapping, layered, whispers and shouts and sobs, whole lives pressing against his skull. Every time he tried to surface, another dragged him down. At the center of the storm sat Nyra, her knees tucked to her chest, her hair floating around her face like ink. She didn't look at him, but he felt her. Every nerve, every heartbeat. She wasn't inside him. She was him. Cale tried to speak, but his voice broke into hers. Two tones tangled. Get out of me, he said. Her head lifted, eyes black with sorrow. You invited me. He tried to deny it, but he remembered every time he'd opened the umbrella when he should have left it shut. Every time he'd chased her voice, instead of running. "Not like this," he whispered. Her face softened, then sharpened. "You don't get to decide anymore." He woke with Celine's gun at his temple. "Rhines," she hissed. Her eyes were red, her hands trembling but steady on the grip. "Tell me it's you." Cale's throat scraped raw. "It's me." "Prove it." The words caught. He opened his mouth. Nyra's voice slipped out instead. "Celine." Celine's finger twitched on the trigger. Cale saw it. He also saw the flicker of pain in her eyes. She wanted to shoot, needed to shoot, but she didn't. Not yet. Cale swallowed, forced the words out, low, guttural. "It's me. I'm still here." Celine's hand dropped, but only barely. "You've got seconds left, Rhines. That girl's eating you alive. If you can't hold the line, I will end you." Cale lit a cigarette with shaking hands. The smoke burned his lungs. He wondered if it was his breath or hers. The syndicate didn't wait long. By nightfall, the city itself sang. It began as a hum beneath the rain, low, mechanical, like the throb of engines buried underground. Then it rose, notes climbing into frequencies that made glass tremble, neon flicker, stomachs twist. People clutched their heads, collapsing in the street. Their eyes went blank, their mouths slack. They weren't dead. They were empty. Celine paled. The choir. Cale blinked through the ringing in his skull. "What the hell's the choir?" "A purge unit," Celine spat. "They flood districts with erasure signals, blanket the whole block. Anyone unstable, anyone carrying fragments, they burn clean." Her eyes locked on him. "Which means you." The hum thickened. Cale's vision smeared, doubling. Nyra's voice swelled in his chest. "They'll kill us both." He staggered against a wall. "She's right. If they burn me, they burn her too." Celine's grip on her blade tightened. "Maybe that's the only way." Cale glared at her through smoke and pain. "You want to erase me? Fine. But what if she's the only one who knows the truth? What if she's the reason they built the choir in the first place?" The hum became song. Wordless, mechanical, layered with static. Cale felt his memories slipping. Names, places, the faces of people he'd once known, peeling away. He tried to hold them. They bled through his fingers. Nyra's hands gripped his from the inside. "I'll hold you. Don't let go." For a moment, Cale almost believed she wasn't a parasite. She was a lifeline. The choir arrived like a wave. Drones poured into the sky, their carapaces gleaming black, each one humming the frequency. Together they harmonized into something unbearable. Windows shattered. Rain itself vibrated. Cale fell to his knees, clutching his skull. He saw flashes, not just his memories, but hers. Their childhoods overlapping, parents' faces blurring, laughter and screams fusing until he couldn't tell which belonged to whom. Celine dragged him behind cover, her knife sparking as she slashed a drone out of the air. "Rhines, hold on." Cale's voice split, Nyra's tone threading through. "I can't." "We can," Nyra whispered, "together." Cale staggered upright, umbrella clenched tight. His arm moved, but it wasn't his motion. It was hers, guiding his hand. The canopy snapped open. The rain screamed. The choir faltered, their harmonies bent, warped. Memories bled from them, fragments spilling into the air like shattered glass. Cale saw flashes, syndicate technicians wiring the drones, Drexler's face lit by neon. Blueprints marked with erasure is control. Nyra surged through him, stronger than ever. He didn't fight her, he let her in. Together they pushed. The drones cracked mid-air. static bursting from their hulls. The frequency twisted, backfiring into their own circuits. One by one, the choir fell, crashing into rooftops, exploding into rain and fire. The hum died. Silence. Kale collapsed, the umbrella clattering beside him. He barely felt Selene catch him, her breath ragged in his ear. "You're not going to survive this," she whispered. "Not a threat, not even anger, just truth." Kale's voice rasped. Nyra's echo braided through it. "Then help me make it worth something." Selene's eyes closed, her blade still trembling in her hand. For once, she didn't argue. That night, as the city smoked and the rain fell thicker than ever, Kale stood at the window of a ruined safe house. His reflection stared back. One eye his, one eye hers. And for the first time, he didn't know which side of the glass he stood on. Chapter 10. Glass Mines. The safe house smelled of mold and cordite. Kale sat on the floor, knees pulled tight, smoke curling from the end of his cigarette. The walls around him were scorched, patched with water stains that never dried. Selene paced the length of the room like a caged animal, her boots striking hard against concrete. She hadn't spoken to him in hours, not since the choir. Kale didn't blame her. He barely trusted himself. You're shaking." Nyra's voice brushed against the inside of his skull, soft but constant. Shut up," Kale muttered, too low for Selene to hear. "You let me in. Don't pretend you didn't." He pressed his palm to his temple. "I didn't have a choice." Nyra laughed, not cruel, but almost tender. "That's what you tell yourself. But I know you felt it. Relief. You were stronger with me." Kale dragged smoke into his lungs until it burned. "Stronger, weaker, doesn't matter. I'm not giving you what's left." Silence. Then a whisper. "Maybe what's left isn't yours to give." Selena stopped pacing. "Talk to me, Rhines," she said without turning. Kale lifted his eyes. "About what?" "About whether I'm aiming at a man or a ghost." She spun, blade in hand, the edge trembling in the flicker of neon leaking through the cracked blinds. "You tell me to trust you, but I watched you slaughter a dozen syndicate men with a smile that wasn't yours. So convince me. Tell me why I shouldn't cut your throat right here." Kale met her stare. "Because you'd be cutting hers too." Selene flinched, just slightly. Don't talk like that. She's not you. She's in me." He tapped his chest, hard. "Every second, every breath. You think you're talking to me, but half the time you're not. You don't want the truth? Fine. But don't lie to yourself." Selene's grip tightened on the blade. Her lips trembled, but she didn't speak. Kale thought of how she'd looked the first night in his office, calm, untouchable, untouching. She wasn't that anymore. She was frayed, just like him. The rain outside thickened, drumming against the roof. Kale closed his eyes and fell inward. They stood in a corridor of mirrors. Each pane reflected not one face, but two, his and hers, overlapping, glitching. Memories flickered behind the glass. Childhood toys, laughter, screams, alleys lit in neon, syndicate boots striking wet pavement. Kale touched the glass. His reflection smiled. Not his smile, hers. "Shah, get out," he said. Nyra stepped from the reflection, bare feet silent on the endless floor. "Why? This is ours now." "This is mine." "Is it?" She tilted her head. Her hair fell across her face. "Do you even remember what you were before me? Or have I always been here?" Kale's stomach turned. Because the truth was, he didn't know. Memories that should have been solid were blurred. His first case, his father's face, the smell of his apartment. Were those his or hers? "I'm not you," he forced out. Nyra smiled sadly. "Then prove it." He snapped awake, drenched in sweat. Celine was at the window, her shoulders rigid, her hand pressed to her ear, listening to a comm intercept. Her face was pale. "What?" Cale croaked. "They're moving something," she said, voice flat. "Big, not another choir, something worse." Cale pushed himself upright. "Worse how?" Celine turned, her eyes hollow. "They're not erasing this time. They're rewriting." Cale froze. Celine threw a datapad onto the floor between them. Schematics, half corrupted, pulsed across the screen. A machine the size of a cathedral. Its core labeled in bold syndicate type, Eidolon. Cale scanned the notes. The language clinical. Merciless. Neural reconstruction. Implantation of fabricated memory clusters. Entire populations overwritten with narratives chosen by the syndicate. "They don't just want to forget us," Celine whispered. "They want to rewrite who we were." Nyra stirred in Cale's chest. He felt her panic, like a second heartbeat. "If they use it, no one will remember me. Not even you." Cale lit another cigarette, though his hands shook. "Drexler doesn't want control. He wants authorship." Celine slammed her blade into the table, sparks jumping. "We can't let it go online." Cale exhaled smoke. "Then we go after it." Celine stared at him, jaw tight. "We? You can barely keep yourself together." Cale's lips twitched into something between a grimace and a smile. "Then maybe that's what makes me dangerous." Nyra's whisper slid across the edges of his mind. "Or maybe that's what makes us perfect." Cale didn't know which terrified him more, that she was wrong or that she wasn't. The rain pounded harder, drowning out the city's noise. Somewhere in the neon-choked sprawl, Drexler's Eidolon pulsed, waiting to write a new world. And Cale, half man, half memory, lit another cigarette and wondered how much of him would be left to fight. Chapter 11. The Eidolon Cathedral. The city felt hollow. Whole blocks had gone silent after the choir's collapse. Neon still burned. Signs still screamed for vice and pleasure. But no one answered. The syndicate had scrubbed them clean, empty shells walking, eyes blank, smiles thin and wrong. Cale lit his third cigarette of the night and didn't bother hiding the tremor in his hand. Selena moved ahead, scanning alleys with her blade drawn. "You're too loud," she muttered without turning. Cale smirked smoke. "Rain's louder." Inside his skull, Nyra whispered, "She's right. You draw too much notice." "Then maybe they should notice," Cale muttered. Celine shot him a look over her shoulder. "You're talking to yourself again." Cale's lips twitched. "Not myself. Not exactly." She didn't reply. The path to Eidolon ran beneath the city. Old storm tunnels, half collapsed, reeking of acid runoff and rot. The walls sweated moisture that hissed faintly on contact with their boots. Celine's voice was low, steady, almost ritualistic. "Every syndicate hub has a root. You kill the root, the branches fall. Eidolon's root is under the south spire. We burn it before Drexler lights the fuse." Cale muttered, "Simple plan." Celine's mouth tightened. "Nothing about this is simple." "She's scared," Nyra murmured inside him. "Scared of you, scared of me, scared of what happens if we win." Cale touched the umbrella strapped to his back. His fingers itched. Maybe she should be. They reached the first gate, An hour past midnight. Syndicate guards stood beneath dripping neon lamps, masks humming faintly with signal static. But it wasn't the masks that froze Kale's blood. It was the civilians. Half a dozen men and women stood beside the guards, blank-eyed, their mouths curled into placid smiles. Their movements were puppet smooth, synchronized. When the guards shifted, they shifted. Celine hissed. Test subjects. Kale's stomach turned. Rewritten. The guards spotted them. The thralls moved first. They attacked without hesitation, without anger, smiling all the while. Kale slammed his fist into the first one's jaw and felt the wrongness immediately. Bones too soft, muscles moving on strings. The man crumpled, then rose again, smile unbroken. Celine cut through another with a precise slash. The woman's body split, blood spraying across the tunnel wall. Her smile never faded, even as she died. Kale staggered back. Jesus Christ! Nyra surged inside him, sharp and urgent. Don't look at their faces. They're not people anymore. They're stories overwritten. The umbrella snapped open in his hands before he realized he'd moved. Rain curved, blades of acid slicing through the thralls. They fell, twitching, still smiling. The guards broke formation, fear flickering even through their static-masked composure. Celine moved like lightning, knives flashing, cutting them down before they could regroup. Silence returned, broken only by Kale's ragged breathing. He stared at the corpses, their mouths frozen in serene arcs, eyes glassy. Celine wiped her blade on her sleeve, jaw tight. If Eidolon goes live, the whole city looks like this. Kale's voice rasped. Not if we burn it first. The tunnels opened into a cavernous chamber. Kale froze. Even Celine stopped breathing. Eidolon was alive. The machine rose from the depths like a cathedral inverted, its spires plunging into the earth, its veins glowing with pale neon. Thousands of cables dripped from the ceiling, feeding into pods that lined the walls. And in each pod, faces. Men, women, children. Their eyes closed, mouths whispering silent words. Memories projected into them like film reels. Some cried, some laughed, some screamed. Kale's chest constricted. Nyra pressed hard against his mind. Breathless. They're rewriting them in real time, manufacturing lives. Celine's voice broke. This isn't a machine. It's a goddamn forge. At the center of it all, on a throne of wires and light, a figure watched. Drexler. His voice echoed through the chamber, rich with static and control. Detective Rhines, or should I say, Rhinus and Nyra, together at last. You saved me the trouble of dragging you here. Kale's hand twitched toward the umbrella. You built this to wipe her out. Drexler's laugh was slow, indulgent. Not wipe, recast. The girl never existed. The detective never resisted. The city never bled. All of this, he spread his hands, will be a forgotten dream. Nyra screamed inside Kale's skull, so loud he staggered. Liar. Kale's own voice tore free with hers, a tangled howl. Then why do I remember? For the first time, Drexler's mask of calm cracked. His eyes narrowed. Because you were supposed to be rewritten too. Kale froze. Nyra's voice was a whisper of ice. What did he say? Celine's knife gleamed. Rhines, don't listen. But Kale couldn't stop. His vision blurred, memories splintering, overlapping. A case file he'd read years ago. A girl who disappeared, her registry erased. His first cigarette, lit in an alley after a rainstorm. A reflection in a puddle that wasn't his face. Nyra's face. Kale, she whispered, What if you were erased too? The world tilted. The machine hummed. Drexler smiled. And for the first time, Cale wasn't sure if he was the detective chasing the girl or the girl remembering the detective. Chapter 12. The Rewrite. The world folded. Not shattered, folded. Pages of a book, creasing inward, words running, ink bleeding, until they no longer belonged to the paper. Cale felt himself pulled between lines, his bones bending into sentences, his breath caught in margins. Nyra's scream was inside him, around him, part of him. Don't let go. Don't you dare let go. But the pull of Eidolon was stronger than rain, stronger than gravity. It reached into his chest, rewiring every neuron with hands that felt both divine and surgical. Cale's last sight before the world inverted. Selene, blade raised, charging Drexler's throne. He was 10. A cigarette in his mouth, too big for his lips, stolen from his father's pack, rain dripping down rusted gutters. Then he blinked. He was 16. Nyra's hand in his, running down an alley, syndicate boots pounding behind them. Blink again. He was 30, sitting in his office, the umbrella on his desk. Cale staggered. These aren't mine. Nyra appeared beside him, hair plastered by phantom rain. Her eyes blazed. They're not mine either. They're what they want us to believe. Sky above them wasn't sky. It was glass. Behind it, rows of machines turned, feeding images into their minds like reels of film. Cale reached for one, his hand plunging through. He felt laughter, warmth, a woman's lips on his cheek. A wedding ring. He yanked his hand back, gasping, I was never married. Nyra grabbed his wrist. That's what they do. They give you lives you never lived so you forget the one you did. Cale's stomach turned. Then how do we know who we are? Nyra's whisper was sharp enough to cut. We don't. Outside the machine's mind, Selene fought like a storm. Drexler hadn't moved from his throne. He didn't need to. His enforcers poured from the walls, their bodies tethered by cables, eyes white with rewrites. They moved too smooth, too perfect. Selene cut through them, her blade shrieking sparks against steel and bone. Blood sprayed across neon-lit cables, sizzling as it hit current. Rhines, she screamed, voice raw. Wake the hell up! Drexler's voice rolled from the throne, amplified by the machine. He can't hear you. He's being rewritten as we speak. Soon there will be no Rhines, no Nyra, just silence. Selene hurled a blade, embedding it inches from his face. Then I'll cut the silence into pieces. Inside Eidolon, Cale's reflection split again. One pane of glass showed him as Cale, detective, smoker, cynic, rain-scarred. The other showed him as Nyra, girl with erased records, eyes wide with fury, hands trembling against the umbrella's handle. The reflections blurred until he couldn't tell where one ended. Nyra clutched his arm. Listen to me, we're real. I don't care what they feed us. I remember you. You remember me. That's enough. Cale stared at her, chest burning. But what if one of us isn't? The glass shivered. From the fractures stepped a third reflection. Not Cale, not Nyra. A boy. His face was theirs, blended. His voice echoed both. One of you was written, the boy said. A construct, a memory, born from Eidolon's core. Cale's lungs collapsed. Which? The boy smiled. Does it matter? Outside, Selene's blade sank into Drexler's arm. He hissed, finally moving, blood bright against his immaculate coat. You're too late, he snarled. The rewrite is already seeded. They'll forget her. They'll forget him. They'll forget everything that doesn't serve us. Selene drove her knife deeper. Then I'll make damn sure they remember this. She tore the blade free, sparks erupting as she sliced a cable behind him. The cathedral screamed, lights strobing, pods convulsing. Kale and Nyra fell to their knees as the rewrite faltered. Memories spilled out, uncontrolled, flooding them. Kale saw Nyra as a child, laughing at rain. He saw himself as a boy, crying in a hospital bed. He saw her first cigarette, his first kiss, her first scream. They tangled until he couldn't breathe. Nyra clutched his face. Desperate. Kale, we're being rewritten into each other. His eyes burned. Then maybe that's what we've always been. The boy reflection's smile widened. You understand now. The truth isn't whether you are real or not. The truth is, you're both fictions. Kale felt his chest split. We're not fictions. We're the ones still fighting. Nyra's lips brushed his ear. Then let's fight as one. And for the first time, Kale didn't resist. Celine staggered, drenched in blood and sparks, as the cathedral shook. Drexler clung to his throne, screaming, No, you can't hold against the rewrite. The umbrella opened. Light poured from the machine. Not white, not neon, but something older. Rain bent mid-air, acid transforming to glass, every drop refracting faces, voices, memories. The thralls collapsed, their smiles breaking into screams. Celine shielded her eyes. When she looked again, Kale and Nyra stood at the heart of Eidolon. Or maybe just one figure. She couldn't tell. Drexler's voice cracked, fury and fear in equal measure. You don't know who you are. You don't even exist. The figure's voice answered, layered, doubled. Kale and Nyra together. Then neither do you. The rain fell harder, and Eidolon began to tear itself apart. Chapter 13. The Last Memory. The cathedral was breaking. Cables snapped, like veins torn from flesh. Pods cracked open, spilling bodies that gasped for air and clutched at their skulls, half remembering lives they weren't sure belonged to them. The neon veins in the walls flickered, bleeding light like a dying heart. Celine staggered across the trembling floor, blade slick with blood, eyes locked on the figure standing at the machine's core. Kale, or Nyra, or both. Rain poured from nowhere, bending around the open umbrella. It didn't fall so much as float, each drop refracting 1,000 faces, 1,000 moments. For a heartbeat, Celine thought she saw herself in them too. Every wound, every kill, every night she'd swallowed her fear. Rhines, she called, voice ragged. Is that still you? The figure turned. His face, her face, shifted like light on water. Kale's jawline, Nyra's eyes, both at once, never fixed. The voice that came was doubled, layered, too human and not enough. It doesn't matter who we were, only what we do now. Drexler clung to his throne, blood soaking his coat, wires burrowing into his arms to keep him upright. Even broken, he sneered. You think you've won? You're nothing but failed data, corrupted files arguing over ownership of a corpse. Eidolon will outlive you. Kale Nyra stepped forward, umbrella tilting. Rain curved toward Drexler, each drop hissing against the throne's steel. Eidolon outlives nothing, they said. It only erases. Celine's chest tightened. She had seen men ready to kill, men ready to die. But this was different. This was a voice, ready to unmake. Chuck, the cathedral screamed as Drexler forced the machine alive one last time. Lights strobed, pods convulsed, memory streams surged. Celine felt it claw at her mind. Visions of herself, laughing with parents she never had, holding children she never bore, living a life soft and safe. She bit down hard on her tongue until blood filled her mouth. "You're not taking me." But the pull was crushing. Nyra dropped the umbrella's tip into the floor. Light rippled outward, bending the rain, bending the rewrite. For a moment, Celine could breathe again. Inside their skull, Kale and Nyra wrestled. "We can't hold this," Kale gasped. "We don't need to hold it," Nyra whispered. "We just need to end it." Kale's throat burned. "And then what? Who are we without the fight?" Nyra's answer was soft, devastating. "Maybe we're no one, but no one is better than their lie." They lunged, umbrella slicing the air, rain twisting into blades, striking Drexler's throne. Steel shrieked as the machine's core split open, cables flailing like serpents. Light poured out, blinding, searing. Drexler screamed, not in fear, but in outrage. "You don't get to choose. I write the world. I decide what's remembered." Nyra's voice thundered. "Then remember this." They drove the umbrella's tip into the heart of Eidolon. Light consumed everything. Celine dropped to her knees, hands over her skull, as the cathedral collapsed inward. For a heartbeat, she felt every life around her. The thralls, the erased, the sleepers in the pods. Their memories tore through her. Laughter, screams, love, hate. Days that never belonged to her. And then it was gone. Silence. The rain still fell, but softer now, no longer acid, no longer burning. It tapped gently against rubble, against broken glass, against Celine's heaving chest. She lifted her head. The cathedral was gone. Only ruins remained, steel twisted like broken ribs, cables smoldering, pods shattered. Bodies lay scattered, some still breathing, some still. And in the center of it all, the umbrella, closed, lying in the rain. Celine's hands shook as she picked it up. She whispered, "Rhines?" No answer. She scanned the rubble, heart hammering. No Kale, no Nyra, only echoes of their voice inside her memory. It doesn't matter who we were, only what we do now. The city stirred in the days that followed. Some remembered, some didn't. Families reunited with faces they half knew. Lovers embraced strangers who wore familiar smiles. The syndicate fractured, its cathedral burned, its god machine silenced. But the rain never stopped. Celine stood in Kale's office weeks later, cigarette between her lips, the umbrella propped against the desk. The room smelled of smoke and mildew, same as it always had. She lit up, exhaled slow, and muttered into the quiet, "You'd hate the way I smoke." Outside, neon flickered. The city hadn't healed. Maybe it never would. She tapped ash into an empty glass. "Doesn't matter. Someone's got to remember." Her eyes drifted to the umbrella. For a moment, just a flicker, she swore she heard two voices, one rough, one soft, speaking together. "We remember you." Celine closed her eyes. Let the rain fall. Epilogue. A child in the lower wards found a notebook washed up in a gutter. The pages were waterlogged, the words smeared, but one name remained legible. Nyra. The child traced the letters with small fingers, then smiled as if it meant something. And in the distance, thunder rolled like memory, trying to break free.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Until next time, stay safe.